Name is Oliver Reich, and the beauty is since the last World Cup where Croatia made it, people are finally able to pronounce my last name. Other than that, I'm Alpha FinTech CEO, and our mission is very ambitious where we're trying to simplify FinTech adoption. And by doing that there's hundreds and thousands of APIs that even if a bank wants to access them, they still have to integrate and standardize them. So our mission is basically to build this quasi-operating system where this single API now provides access and the capability for the bank to test, try, and launch these solutions without really having to lift a finger because we've done it for them. Earlier, there was a session where somebody made the comment, you know what, in the UK people talked about how innovations are going to destroy banks and it never happened. Partially true. Banks aren't going to be destroyed because the old model of one survivor, that's not what we're talking about. But what is happening to the banks is that they're starting to die a death of 1,000 paper cuts. How so? Because what the SME is doing, and I'll tie it to that, is they're starting to integrate to themselves to small niche innovation and solution providers. And what happens is the bullet points that you just mentioned, that's 12 to 15 integrations that they will undergo themselves. They will marginalize the bank into a single feature and function that's necessary, and then they're going to go out solution shopping on their own. There's a statistic from Gartner that 50% of all e-commerce merchants, so not the large ones, of all, average more than 15 payments-related integrations. So from the moment the payment goes in, loan, FX, logistics, CRM, accounting, 15. So ask yourself, if you're a bank, how many of those 15 can you provide? Granted, they have to come to you for loans and for banking, but if you want to be a side note, you're well on your way. If you want to be an enabler, you have to simplify for these SMEs to have their entire strategy laid out where you are an enabler for it versus just a difficult component for it. So for the SMEs, what you've then seen is there's the Stripes, and they're trying to simplify this into a single API. But even that's not enough because that's not a dynamic approach. From Stripe, you go to Braintree, you go to Adyen. Your needs evolve as you as a customer evolve. And the Stripe isn't right for everybody else. So even I, as a bank, my biggest challenge is I have large, medium, small customers. I have the luxury good retailer to the guy that might be selling some little headphones for $5 a piece. I have a high-risk customer and maybe an airline that I have to worry about to somebody who's a government. None of those will have the same API shopping list that you just mentioned. So if I'm a bank, the question is not, how do I reinvent the wheel? I hate to tell you, you won't. The question is, how can I take these solutions that my customers need and I can become an enabler for them and wrap my banking products around them? Take a look at the phone companies today. 10 years ago, it was all about making money on the phone call. That's dead right now. Now it's about the data plans and enabling these apps and these value-add layers and maybe creating and designing some of their own. So there's an evolution that is coming from this digitization that the SMEs and customers are driving that the bank needs to respond to. And while it might not kill you off, the way they said this morning, it sure as heck is going to be a death of 1,000 paper cuts where it's going to cost you margin left and right. There was a Sibos study that I saw from last year that showed that less than 50% of banks had an API strategy. And more than 50% of banks had none and didn't even think about it. Building on these 2 points, there is an inflection point. As telcos had to evolve and change, so do banks. Going to the point that I was making before, this death by 1,000 paper cuts, the Amazons are encroaching. But banks have an advantage of having a strong customer base, of having local knowledge, of having access to customers that trust them. Maybe not all of them, but that still trust them that others don't. So if there's anything to be taken away from the middle point here, sort of a middle ground here is it's time to evolve and adapt with the times. To say I don't have an API strategy, good luck to you 5 to 10 years from now. The Amazons will eat your lunch and so will others. To have an API strategy, figure out then how you're going to attack these things because you do have credibility, trust, and a stronger foundation than any fintech to come from.
Absolutely.
If I'm a bank, why do you want to build your own power plant and run it? Does your customer care that you have built the connection to Alipay, to this logistics and CRM solutions. There is no value in you building that. Customers come to you for the simplicity of the user interface and for the value-add layers of how easy you make it to get onboarded, to get funding, to get loans, to get payments, to get FX rates. That is your DNA. It is not building connectivity and plugins, so stop being enamored with the solution that you have to build a power plant and run it. So what you're seeing right now is an entire industry spawning where they're consolidating these connections and the APIs. And there's no one master consolidator again. There's over 15,000 fintech APIs. To connect them and to maintain them, all of them, is just not going to happen. You've got consolidators for cloud-based solutions, for accounting, for loyalty solutions, for banking, for issuing. Your goal as a bank is, remember the 3 APIs that I said, find your internal API solution so you can have harmony internally. Find your partner API vendors, not one vendor, a number of vendors that'll help you to get access to these plugins so you don't have to reinvent the wheel and connect them, and then focus on your open API strategy, how you can attract these developers and enhance your connectivity and interface, and that is your strategy. Pick your battles, choose your battles, partner with the right technologies, and become an enabler through that.